Chapter 23. That's all it was, Beezy said the next morning. Quite understandable, but it wasn't that whiskey he gave you that really finished you, wasn't it? Yes, I suppose. I should have been alright without that. I can't tell Welch that, though. No, of course you can't, Jim, but you can't plead nervousness and the heat and so on after all. You did pass out. They'll never forgive me for wrecking a public lecture, though, and nervousness wouldn't make me imitate Eddie and the principal, would it? They went in through the college gates, three students hanging about there fell silent and nudged each other as Dixon passed. Beezy said, I don't know, you could try, couldn't you? You've got nothing to lose. No, you're right there, Alfred. Oh, it doesn't matter. I've had it anyway. There's a Christine business, too. Welch will know about that by now. You mustn't be so gloomy. I don't think Welch will take any notice of what Bertram, or whatever his bloody name is, says to him. It's nothing to do with him. What you do is his son's girlfriend, is it? There's the Margaret angle, you see. There's no doubt he'd look at it as letting her down, which it was, of course, however you look at it. Beezy glanced at him without replying. Then, as they went into the common room, said, Don't let it get you down, Jim. See you coffee time? Yes, Dixon said absently. His stomach turned over as he recognized Welch's handwriting. On a note in his high pigeonhole, he went out and upstairs reading it. Welch felt he ought to let him know, unofficially, that when the council met next week, he would be unable to recommend Dixon's retention on the staff. He advised Dixon, also unofficially, to wind up his affairs in the district and leave as soon as possible. He would furnish what testimonials he could for any application Dixon might make for a new job, provided it were outside the city. He himself was sorry Dixon had got to leave because he enjoyed working with him. There was a P.S. telling Dixon he needn't worry about the matter of the bedclothes. For his part, Welch was prepared to consider it settled well. That was decent of him. Dixon felt a slight stab of conscience at having rather let Welch down over the lecture, and a less slight one at having spent so much of his time and energy in hating Welch. He went into the room he shared with Cecil Goldsmith and stood at the window. The sultriness of the previous few days had passed without thunder, and the sky promised hours of sunshine. Alterations were being made to the physics laboratory. A lorry had drawn up by the wall. Bricks and cement were being unloaded, and the sound of hammering could be heard. He could easily get a school teaching job. His old headmaster had told him at Christmas that a senior history post in the school wouldn't be filled until September. He'd write to him and say he had decided he wasn't cut out for the university teaching, but he wouldn't write today, not today. What was he going to do today? He wandered from the window and picked up a fat and luxurious periodical that lay on Goldsmith's table, the Journal of some Italian Historical Society. Something on the cover caught his eye, and he turned to the relevant page. He never learned any Italian, but the name at the head of his article, Alice Catone, presented no difficulty nowhere. After a minute or two, did the general drift of the text, which was concerned with the shipbuilding techniques in Western Europe in the latter 15th century and their influence on something or other. There could be no doubt about it. This article was either a close paraphrase or a translation of Dixon's own original article. At a loss for faces, he drew in his breath to swear, then cackled hysterically instead. So that was how people got chairs, was it? Chairs of that sort anyway. Oh wow, it didn't matter now. But what a cunning old... That reminded him, one of the things he got to do today was to see Johns and abuse or even assault him for the latest piece of treachery. He went out and down the stairs. Reconstruction of the crime had been easy. By consulting Beasley and Atkinson, Dixon had deduced that Johns must have overheard the other two discussing the Christine tea date and had taken the first opportunity to pass the news on to his friend and patroness. He could have done this, and so he must have done this at any rate. Dixon had virtually Bertrand's word for it that Johns was an informer. However he got hold of the information, hatred lit him up briefly like a neon sign as he tapped the door of John's office and went in. There was nobody there. Dixon advanced to the desk where a lot of insurance policies lay. He pondered for a moment. He had done anything to deserve John's two betrayals. The decorations added to the face of the composer on the periodical. A harmless joke, the letter from Joe Higgins, a transparent piece of horseplate. Dixon nodded to himself and, clutching up a handful of insurance policies, stuffed them into his pocket and left. A few moments later, he was descending cautiously into the boiler house. There seemed to be nobody about. Coal dust cracked under his feet as he nosed about among the boilers, looking for one in action. There must be one to heat the water for the various cloakroom. Here it was, smoking vigorously. He picked up some sort of tool from the floor in front of it and shoved the lid aside. The policies burned very quickly and thoroughly. There wouldn't be any sort of trace. He put the lid back and ran up the stairs. Nobody saw him emerge. What was he going to do now? He'd come into college with, he realized, nothing very clear in mind, chiefly out of a reluctance to leave Beezy's company. Now he'd got the sack, however, he didn't want to wait about till coffee time, when moreover he might run into Welch or the principal. There was really no reason why he should ever come up here again, unless to remove his belongings. Well, that was clearly the next job, and it could be done in one go because he'd never brought anything to college beyond 2 or 3 reference books and some lecture notes. He went back up to his room and started getting these together. Working in his hometown, he reflected, would mean seeing less of Margaret, but not enough less because her home and his were only 15 miles apart. As experience had already proved, that was a reasonable or not sufficiently unreasonable journey to make for an evening together at least once a week during vacation time, and 3 months of vacation lay just ahead. On the way out of college, he found himself being approached by a man he didn't quite recognize, but about whose appearance there was something familiar. This man said, "That was a very good lecture you gave us last night." Mitchie Dixon said, "You just shaved off your mustache, Mitchie." "That's right, Eileen O'Shaughnessy said she was brown off with it, so I said farewell to it this morning." "Good advice, Mitchie. A great improvement. Thanks. I hope you're fully recovered from your fainting fit or whatever it was." "Oh, yes, thanks. No permanent injuries. Good. We all enjoyed your lecture. I'm very glad to hear it. It went down like a bomb. I know. Pity you didn't manage to finish it." "Yes. Still, we got the main drift." Mitchie paused while a group of strangers went by, deluded visitors to the college's open week. He went on, "I say, don't mind me asking this, do you? But some of us wondered if you were slightly, drunk." "Yes, I suppose I was, rather. Been a row about it, I suppose. Or haven't they had time to get round to it yet?" "Oh, yes, they've had time. Bad row, was it? Well, yes, as these things go, I got to push." "What?" Mitchie looked sympathetic, but neither surprised nor indignant. "That's quick work. Well, I'm really sorry about that. Just over the lecture." "No, there'd be one or two other little departmental difficulties before, as you probably know." Mitchie was silent for a while, or a moment, then said, "Some of us will miss you. That's nice. I shall miss some of you. I'm going home tomorrow, so I'll say goodbye now. I passed all right, I suppose. You can tell me now, can't you? I shan't hear till next week otherwise." "Oh, yes, all your crowd are through. Drew failed, though. He is a friend of yours?" "No, thank God. Very satisfactory that, well, goodbye. I suppose I shall be doing Eddie's special subject after all next year. Looks like it, doesn't it?" Dixon put his effects under his left arm and shook. "All the best, then. Same to you." Dixon went off down College Road, forgetting to take a last look at the college buildings until too late. He felt almost free of care, which, considering the circumstances, he thought rather impressive of him. He'd go home that afternoon. He'd have gone away in a couple of days. He'd come back next week to pick up the last of his stuff, see Margaret, and so on. See Margaret, ooh yeah, he called out to himself, thinking of it. Wow. Well, I don't know how to pronounce it. With his home, it's just like a reaction. With his home so near hers, leaving this place wouldn't seem like a move on, but a drift to one side. This was really the worst of it. He remembered now that this was the day he was to see Catchpole at lunchtime. What could the fellow want? No use wondering about that. The important thing was how to kill time until then. Back at his digs, he bathed his eye, which was beginning to fade a little, though its new color promised to be just as disfiguring and a good deal less wholesome. A conversation with Miss Cutler about rations and laundry followed. Then he had to shave in a bath. While he was in the water, he heard the phone ring, and in a few moments, Mr. Dixon Cutler tapped at the door. "Are you there, Mr. Dixon?" "Yes. What is it, Mr. Cutler?" "A gentleman on the phone for you." "Who is it? I'm afraid I didn't get the name. Was it Catchpole? Pardon? No, I don't think so. It was longer somehow. All right, Mr. Cutler. Would you ask him for a number, and I'll ring him in about 10 minutes. Right you are, Mr. Dixon." Dixon dried himself, wondering who this could be. Bertrand with more threats? He hoped so. John's having intuited the fate of his insurance policies? Possibly. The principal summoning him to an extraordinary meeting of the college council? No, not that. While he dressed, he thought how nice it was to have nothing he must do. There were compensations for ceasing to be a lecturer, especially that of ceasing to lecture. He was put on an old polo sweater to signify his severance of connections with the academic world. The trousers he wore were the ones he'd torn on the seat of Welch's car. They'd been expertly repaired by Miss Cutler. By the phone, he found a pencil slip in the girlish hand. Though she'd again found the name beyond her, she'd got the number, which he saw with some surprise referred to a small village some miles away in the opposite direction to Welch's. He didn't know he knew anyone there. A woman's voice answered this call. "Hello," he said, thinking he could write a thesis on the use of the phone in non-business life. The woman's voice announced her number. "Have you got a man there?" he asked, feeling a little baffled. "A man? Who's that speaking?" The tone was hostile. "My name's Dixon." "Oh, yes, Mr. Dixon, of course. One moment, please." There was a brief pause in a man's voice. The mouth to close the microphone said, "Hello, that you, Dixon?" "Yes, speaking. Who's this?" "Corey Kearhart here." "Got the sack, have you?" "What?" "I said, got the sack." "Yes, good. Then I won't have to break confidence by telling you so. Well, what are your plans, Dixon?" "I was thinking of going in for school teaching." "Are you right set on it?" "No, not really." "Good. I got a job for you. 500 a year. You have to start at once on Monday. You don't mean living in London. You accept?" Dixon found he could not only breathe but talk. "What job is it?" "Sort of private secretarial work. Not much correspondence, though. A young woman does most of that. It'll be mainly meeting people or telling people I can't meet them. We'll go into the details on Monday, 10 o'clock at my house in London. Take down the address." He gave it, then asked, "Are you all right now?" "Yes, I'm fine, thanks. I went to bed as soon as No, I wasn't inquiring after your health, man. Have you got all the details? You'll be here on Monday." "Yes, of course, and thank you very much, Mr. Right, then I'll see you." "Just a minute, Mr. Gerhardt. Shall I be working with Bertrand Welch?" "Whatever gave you that idea?" "Nothing. I just gathered he was after a job with you." That's the job you've got. I knew young Welch was no good as soon as I set eyes on him, like his pictures. It's a great pity he's managed to get my niece tied up with him. A great pity. No use saying anything to her, though. Obstinate as a mule. Worse than her mother, however. I still think you'll do the job all right. Dixon, it's not that you've got the qualifications for this or any other work, but there are plenty who have. You haven't got the disqualifications, though, and that's much rarer. Any more questions? No, that's all. Thank you. 10 o'clock Monday, he rang off. Dixon rose slowly from the bamboo table. What noise could he make to express his frenzy of hilarious awe? He drew in his breath for a growl of happiness, but what was recalled to everyday affairs by a single hasty chime from the leg clock on the mantelpiece. It was 12:30, the time he was supposed to be meeting Mr. Catchpole to discuss Margaret. Should he go? Living in London would make the Margaret problem less important and rather less immediate. His curiosity triumphed. Leaving the house, he dwelt with exultation on Goya Curhart's summary of the merit of Bertrand's pictures. He knew he couldn't have been wrong about that. Then his walk lost its spring as he realized that Bertrand, jobless and talentless as he was, still had Christine. That was chapter 23. So I'm only 50 pages away. I'm going to finish before the library opens and get my other book. The other book is a long book, so it might take me a week to read it. Peace, y'all.